What's doing, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. If you've never been here before, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Everybody else, welcome back. For those of you that have never visited the channel, I served 17 years straight in the New York State prison system. And today we're going to talk about the movie theater inside of Sing Sing Prison. Sing Sing Prison is one of the only prisons that has a movie theater inside of it. They have movie night, and this is one of the most dangerous places that you can go. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it functions, and about the dangers that are inside, some of the things that have taken place inside of the movie theater. So as I said, not many prisons have a movie theater. And when you Sing Sing is one of the very few, and it's like a typical movie theater. It's a big screen, not the same size as a movie theater when you go to one on the street, but it's a pretty massive screen. And there's rows of seats, just like a movie theater. And when you go in there, the lights go out. And so if you could imagine the scene of being in a movie theater with a bunch of prisoners and the lights go out and there's no officers in there. There's supposed to be an officer in there, but the officers leave. They go outside and they hang out with each other. And there's a lot of violence in this movie theater. People have been killed inside of this movie theater. So usually when guys go to the movies, not too many guys go to the movies. They may have a movie night once a week, and they call it over the speaker system. A movie night tonight, movie night. And when the officer does a go around, what a go around is, the officer asks you, where are you going tonight? And you tell him your cell number and where you're going. So I was Q61. That was my cell number. I was on Q Gallery and I was in 61 cell, which was on the flats. I was in B block at the time. And so I would tell him Q61. If it was movie night, I'd say Q61, chow and movies, which means I'm going to go to the mess hall to eat some dinner, and then I'm going to go to the movies at night. And he marks it down on his clipboard. This way he knows where all the prisoners are. You could be like 61 cell, chow and recreation, chow and gym. You let him know where you're going. And so when you go, and so I would say 61 cell, chow and movies, which means you go eat dinner and then you go back into your cell like a half hour. They call movies, and you go to the movies. Most guys didn't go to the movies alone, right? Because it was a dangerous place. And so let's say it was the crew of white guys that I was with. They say, yo, you going to the movies tonight, Fish? You going to the movies? Let's go to the movies tonight. And we would go as a group, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of us. And we all sit together in the movie theater, because the movie theater is going to go dark. The movie theater, it's going to be dark in there. And if you can imagine being in a dark movie theater with no officers in Sing Sing prison, with murderers, robbers, rapists, kidnappers, carjackers, scam artists, not the safest place in the world. And the movie theater was a place where a lot of problems got settled, a lot of beefs got settled. And the main reason for that is that it was dark. And if you were going to do something, it was hard to see who did it. It was hard for witnesses to say what happened. It was hard for any officers that may step into the movie theater to see who committed the act, because it's pitch black in there besides the light from the screen. So we would go into the movie theater, and the first thing before the movie even started is the whole movie theater just smelled like marijuana. Everyone lit up their joints and started smoking their weed before the movie. People were opening their bottles of hooch, their little bottles of liquor, and they're smoking pot and drinking, waiting for the movie to start, and then you would have your segregated groups. The Jamaicans would be sitting there, the blacks would be sitting in one area, the Latin Kings and the Bloods would be sitting in another area, the white guys would be sitting in another area, and so everybody was sitting in their own groups. This way they felt like they had more protection. You follow what I'm saying? And so many guys would get their faces ripped open when the lights went out. This was just one of the. I want to explain to you how brutal it was, how dangerous it was to go to the movies. You would sit down, and in the middle of the movie, someone would get up with a razor blade in their hand. Somebody would get up with a scalpel in their hand, and they would just lean forward and rip the face open of the person that they had a problem with. And the guy would get up, obviously screaming and bleeding, and no one would be able to really see who did it. And there was no cameras, there was no cameras in prison when I was in there. And even if there were cameras, it was pitch black in there. So I saw many guys get their faces ripped open with scalpels. And if you've ever cut something with a scalpel, you know how vicious that can be, how drastic it can be to just rip someone. And what they would do is they would start at the top of the face and rip all the way down. And a lot of times I saw people get stabbed in the movie theater as well. Guys, that's where they would settle their beefs. But I would say one of the craziest incidents there's not many Chinese guys in prison. Okay, usually when I would go into a prison, you might have 4 or 5 Chinese guys, in the prison, and sometimes you may only have one when you go to a prison, and then sometimes there's 2 or 3. There's no set number, but the fact is, there's not many Asian people inside a prison. They're there. Don't get me wrong, they're there. There's just not large groups of them. Okay, but in Sing Sing, it was a little different. There happened to be a pretty large group of Asians at this time back in 1999. A bunch of Asians were busted inside of New York City. Asians that were real serious guys into crime. Into organized crime, and they were part of a gang. And I actually forget the name of the gang that they were in. Someone brought it up to me in one of the comments recently, which reminded me to tell this story. They said, "Were you ever in prison with any Asians?" In Sing Sing, there was a big group of Asians. And what I mean by a big group is there was about 10, 12, 15 of them that used to hang out together because they had just been busted in New York City in a big crime sweep in the Asian community. And they ended up in Sing Sing, and these were some serious guys. So I have to say first that the Asians in prison were always very respectful guys. The ones that I came across were always very respectful. They did their time like men. They didn't cause a lot of drama. They didn't cause a lot of problems. They usually did good time. They minded their business. There's always exceptions to the rule. But I'm saying, in hindsight and really looking back, these were a bunch of guys that minded their business. And this was a serious group of Asian guys. And so we're in the movie theater on this night, and the Asian group is sitting there. There's 8, 10, 12 of them sitting there in a group. And all of a sudden, they just jumped up as the movie was playing in the dark and started going at it with this black group of black guys, and they were stabbing each other. They were slicing each other with scalpels. I mean, this was all out pandemonium in the movie theater. And as the fight was taking place, as soon as it starts, everyone gives them their space. We back up. We don't want to be in the mix of that, so we jump out of our seats. We move out of the way, and the officers came running in. And when the officers came running in and tried to take down these Asian guys, I don't mean to sound stereotypical, man. This could sound funny, but these guys really knew how to fight. They really knew their martial arts. Everybody thinks that all Asian people know martial arts, which of course isn't true. But this group of guys really knew how to fight. They really knew how to handle themselves, how to defend themselves. And they were going at it with this group of black guys, and they wiped the floor with them. They wiped the floor with them. I really saw how nasty that these guys could get. And like I said, there was blood everywhere in this incident because they were stabbing each other, cutting each other. What had happened was the group of black guys pulled out razors and scalpels to fight with. And I guess they didn't realize that these Asian guys were prepared because these Asian guys brought knives, what we call shanks. They brought pieces of steel, and they were ready to fight with those pieces of steel. And they started stabbing these brothers, and it was a real bloody. The prison went on lockdown after that night. We went on lockdown for about 4 or 5 days. The entire prison was locked down. They did a prison search of the entire facility, and so yeah, it was a dangerous place. It was dangerous to go to the movies. I could say this. It sounds funny. Most of you that have never been in prison like fear or worry about what it would be like to go to prison. And it's only 10 times worse going to the movie theater inside a prison. That's almost like being in a prison inside of a prison. It's hard to explain, man. It was a crazy place. It was a crazy place. So I figured I would just give you a brief video of how crazy the Sing Sing movie theater was. I was never in another prison, and I was in about 7, 8, 9 prisons during my 17 years. That was the only prison I was ever in with a movie theater. And I don't know if Sing Sing still has it. I don't know if they still have the routine of movie night because it was many, many years ago. But boy, that was a dangerous place. You had to have some cojones to go to the movie theater there. Yeah, it was serious, man. It was serious. I'm going to be posting another video later tonight. I just figured I'd give you this one to say hello and give you a little update on how crazy that was. You guys take care. I'll see you later. Sing Sing Movie Theater. No bueno. No bueno. Take care.